Welcome to the greatest show on earth. Alrighty then. Without the safety of a net.
A small step for man, but a giant step for us.
Let's try to recap a little of the story as I called into Infowars morning show of the American Journal because I got just a little bit triggered, I guess is the word, when they talk about the beloved land of Israel. And the morning host there, a guy I really like, Harrison Smith, I called him up. And anyway, they created a feature and they put me in the lead. So you'll hear me when the first voice greets your ears. Be careful, it's a little harsh, but there is no such thing as Palestine, and that was my point. And it's to be elaborated on with a lot of facts, like a blistering array of documentation, so be prepared for that. But that's for here, that's for later. But Harrison Smith and I now, I think we're best pals, aren't we, producer? Isn't that how it went? Kind of, not really.
And unfortunately, it means that I'm on the side of the squad, or whatever they're called, in this situation, because they seem to be the only ones actually standing up for the Palestinians. And again, it's not a racial thing for me. It's not like, well, the Israelis are Jews, so I have to be against them. It's like, I don't care who you are. When you, and I think you put it exactly right, Scott, when you said they have not treated the Palestinians with a modicum of respect or, treating them like human beings. I mean, they treat them like dirt. They treat them like animals. And the only reason Lebanon is free right now is because of Hezbollah. And it's the only reason Syria is free right now.
So the reason that this is so pernicious is because this isn't the usual coming from the BBC. This isn't the AP. This isn't the usual anti-Semitic tripe that we always hear.
Yeah, I know, that's right.
This is coming from the alternate media that's supposed to be truth tellers. They are taking the side of the anti-Semitic media and blowing it up to the 10th power and blowing it out to their audience. It's a sad, sad state of affairs. It only leads to murdered Jews. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up here.
That we're hearing the siren and people are running for shelter. We just heard a loud boom. And now we're hearing another loud boom as well, active in Jerusalem as well.
Wow, these are just incredible pictures we're seeing, Emily.
For shelter. These are images of people running for shelter. That's what's happening. You can see we heard a loud boom, and they're telling the crowd now to find shelter. This is the first siren I've heard in Jerusalem since the last military confrontation with Hamas. This marks a massive uptick in the confrontation that we're seeing between Israel and Hamas. It is a huge, sharp turn to send or to launch rockets this far into Israel.
All right, we're going to SID in Gig Harbor.
But before you do, does he understand that the United Nations as an organization is basically built and designed for one purpose, and that is to trash the state of Israel? To pass resolution after resolution against the state of Israel for what? Defending themselves, trying to stay alive under a rocket barrage unparalleled in their history.
Okay. All right, we're going to SID in Gig Harbor. He says, I don't know what's up. Sid in Gig Harbor, thanks for calling in. You're on the air.
God bless you today, Harrison.
Thank you.
You know, I was angling for your job for a minute there, but thankfully I didn't get it. You're doing a great job, except for this one thing, which I'm going to cut you some slack, give you a break. You know, I know you're not trying to win the Jewish vote or anything, but perhaps it hasn't occurred to you that the Jews are surrounded by 22 Arab states with 23 million square acres. Perhaps you've never woken up in the middle of the night with rocket attacks and screaming sirens, and you have 30 seconds to get to a bunker. Perhaps you're not quite educated on the Yom Kippur, on the Six-Day War, how it's been a war of annihilation against the Jews for thousands of years. And listen, perhaps you lost touch with your friend Will Johnson, who's a very big friend of Israel, as he calls it. The Jews are the oracles of God. They kept the word of God. It is why the satanic plot is to destroy Israel and to specifically take Jerusalem as the capital for the papacy. The Pope is behind all of that. The Pope is behind the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which is a miserable forgery from the pits of hell, no matter what that consistent caller says. All right? The Jews are the friendless ones in history. The Jews have been subject to pogroms and massacres untold in Christian history. And if you do know your Christian Bible, you know that it is the God of the Jews, the God of Israel, who will save all mankind. The kingdom to come will be Israelitish. I have my own show. I talk about these things. I'm not going to name my show because it's not about me. This is about me helping you guys understand the situation a little deeper before you just hop in bed with Omar and Rahib. Look, I did a show on the Squad. I talked to your friend Will Johnson about the Squad. These people want every Jew on earth dead because that ends God's plan for salvation. The kingdom of God will be to the Jew first.
So
now, the Jews who live in the territory
are you Jewish, Sid?
You mentioned the Jews in the territories are Orthodox.
No.
No.
I said Orthodox Jews stand up for the Palestinians. There's a lot of Orthodox Jews that are against the state of Israel because they think that it is folly for man to try to reestablish the state of Israel when God destroyed it.
With some pretty odd websites. In fact, I would say those are the white supremacists that you find 1 in a million. You'll find them out there. But for the most part, sir, people agree that the movement to bring Hebrews from the 4 corners of the earth, all regathered to their own land, to regather, which has never been done in the history of the earth with any other nation, most people who understand their Bibles agree that that was prophetic.
Okay. So why does that give them a right to dislocate Palestinians from their communities and send them into refugee camps? Why does that give them a right to kick Palestinians out of houses that they've been in for generations and off of land that they've been in for generations?
Always a very interesting story, and there's always more to the truth than ever meets the press. But if you were to look at the actual story, the first thing that happened with this whole mess, an American businessman, a successful American businessman with 7 children, took a visit to Israel, drove up to a street corner, fired bullets into 3 innocent Jewish girls waiting for a bus, and 1 was killed. Now, they hunted him down and found him. You don't see that story in the press, but that's where this really did begin.
Wait. Where what began? When was this?
That was just before this incident involving the real estate. Now, 70 people are leaving their homes that are purchased by Jews. These are purchased properties. And this is the capital of Israel. Jerusalem is the historic, undivided capital of Israel. And one last thing, I know you want to get to other people, but there is no such thing as Palestine, people.
See, how can you say there's no such thing? See, saying there's no such thing as Palestine sounds an awful lot like when people say America is just an idea. How can you say there's no such thing as Palestine? Who are the Palestinian people? Who were there before the Jews? Who were there in 1913 when the first Jews escaped pogroms in Eastern Europe and Russia and Ukraine and went to settle in the Pales of Palestine?
Ottoman Empire held it.
What's that?
Then.
The Ottoman, the Ottoman Empire held it. Yeah, that's right. And the Palestinians were there, and Jews were there, and Christians were there, Muslims were there, all living in this area called Palestine, right?
According to Mark Twain, the land was virtually desolate without inhabitant until Jews began to reclaim the malarial swampland, and they only hired Palestinians to help them, and they lived copacetically.
No. Now you're spinning lies. Now you're spinning lies. No.
It's by Joan Peters. It's called Time Immemorial. You can't bottleneck information, and you can't hide the Jesuit influence over this. And I'm going to be back. I'll talk to you some more about this. I'm Sid Canoe.
Okay. All right. Great, Sid. Thank you. I do not think that the prophecies that you're referring to are correct. I don't think the people that are using Judaism as sort of a shield to say, well, you can't criticize us, have any standing. I don't think the people running things like the Rothschilds are particularly Jewish or holy or above reproach. I think they are dirtbags, to be honest with you, not because they're Jewish. I'm telling you, I have probably more Jewish friends than anybody that's not Jewish, right? I grew up, and my wife grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. I had like 4 Jewish people standing next to me at my wedding, watching my wife and I tie the knot. There's nothing against Jewish people. I love Jewish people. I love Jewish culture. I've been to countless bat mitzvahs and weddings. It's a beautiful culture. It really is interesting and a powerful culture that they have. That doesn't give them the right to destroy Palestinians' homes. It doesn't give them the right to bulldoze rubble over Palestinian children. It doesn't give them the right to kill 50 Palestinian children as they have in the last week. It doesn't give them the right to clear people off the land. It doesn't give them a right to say Palestine never existed, doesn't exist, and doesn't deserve to exist. I just don't care about any of that stuff. I care about what's actually happening on the ground, which is a massive first world country that is incredibly rich and funded by the United States and armed by the United States, lording over and oppressing the people that have lived there for generations. I mean, it's so absurd to suggest this is anything else, and also to suggest that I don't know my history. 1913 was where this first began because there were pogroms in Russia after the assassination of the Tsar. Those people from the Ukraine went to Israel and started settle there. Many of those same people went back to Russia after the Bolshevik Revolution. But then it all culminated in the early 1900s with the Balfour Declaration, where once Palestine was under the British mandate, the British government agreed to give the British mandate of Palestine over to the Rothschilds if the Rothschilds would use their political influence in America to bring America into World War I. I mean, what is holy about this? Well, what is godly about any of this? There's nothing godly about this. There's nothing holy about this. There's nothing in prophecy that says this is a good thing. Everything in prophecy said Jesus would come, and then Israel would go away, and Israel would become the body of the Christians. The Christians are now the people of God. We are now the chosen ones, okay?
So the morning host on Infowars is not an anti-Semite by any stretch, and they had this great debate the next night. It was Robert Barnes, attorney, and Nick Fuentes, a guy who's about my daughter's age, I think. So I didn't understand the matchup. I mean, Barnes came off the top rope a few times on the poor kid, and he posted a meme of himself giving the young guy a spanking. And I applaud Mr. Barnes. Seems well educated on the topic. Yeah, Israel has a right to the land, and no, you can't just divorce all reality from the situation. Young Fuentes says, my experience ever since high school has been only this, therefore that's what it is. Well, no, there's 3,000 years, not just 3 years of your life, son. 3,000 years of history could not be wiped away so easily. Here's a thing I wrote on behalf of Israel. It was banned by Google in 2008 or 9, we're not sure. They said content which advocates against an individual, group, or organization was the problem. Google strongly believes in freedom of expression, but also reserves the right to exercise discretion and protect AdWords advertisers. Blah, blah, blah. I was not advocating against any group. Let me just say that up front. I was advocating for the nation of Israel. So here's what I said that they banned. And so I'd like to just take credit for that a little bit. I was cancel culture before there was cancel culture. I'd already had my show banned. So anyway. They don't like me saying much. In fact, I'm not welcome in many rooms. In fact. So, here's what got banned. Here's what made me cancel culture in 08-09. Since the Gentile world's outcry demanding Israel stop using disproportionate force against those who try to kill them, the government of Israel has enacted a policy of precise, proportionate reciprocation against any and all enemies of the Jewish state in order to make things exactly fair. Israel has decided to impose the plan retroactively, beginning with the Palestinian Arabs and expanding to all surrounding nations and abroad. You see where I'm going with this yet? First, Israel will invade each of their neighboring countries, just as Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, and other surrounding Arab peoples did to Israel in previous wars. Israel will launch a war of annihilation against all the nations that attack them, and will thus exactly mirror their enemy's stated goal of destroying all the Jews, by attempting the destruction of all Arab peoples that exist in the region and throughout the world. They will also destroy and desecrate every Islamic holy site, deface every gravestone. No Arab will be allowed to live, period, let alone trade or do business. Israel will then retroactively enter Germany, where they will build gigantic factories into which every single Gentile that lives will be exterminated. They will be brought from Poland, the Czech Republic, France, Italy, from all over Europe. Any who collaborated with Germany in the war to be killed in the camps by starvation, shooting, and gas chambers. Naturally, Israel will not allow the Americans or the Brits to make any effort to bomb the railroad tracks leading to the death camps in Germany, should it ever occur to them. The Israeli army will enter Russia and exact similar policies to what Russia enacted against Jews. Again, in an effort to remain exactly proportionate to the level of force that was used against them. Russians will be beaten, starved, and persecuted mercilessly. And those wishing to leave the country will, of course, be denied visas and then sent to prison. Israel will, of course, ally themselves with all of Russia's enemies and supply them with the latest in weaponry in order to attack Russia. Fair, right? Just adding. After answering the events of the 1940s, Israel will go back in history and offer proportionate response to Spain in the 1490s by making that country off limits to all Spaniards. They'll be persecuted, outlawed, and exiled permanently. In England, Israel will take over the entire island, but then offer the British half. Then they'll go back on the deal and offer only half of the half. And after that, merely 1/4, and then 1/8, and then so on and so on. Meanwhile, Israel will encourage Arab riots and pogroms against the English, you see. Israel's military presence will not lift a finger to stop the wanton slaughter of British citizens everywhere, simply because they are Anglo-Saxons. And of course, none will be allowed to emigrate from Her Majesty's Kingdom. Israeli shore patrols will make sure none are allowed to escape by sea, and that they are immediately returned to the death land, as it shall be called. Those who attempt to escape will be beaten with rifle butts and locked in cages. Many boats will be sunk with all on board. Israel will author a white paper and sign it into law, forbidding any Anglo-Saxon the opportunity to find a peaceful land of their own. And this should at least begin to equate what Great Britain did to the Jewish people in the past. As for America, Israel will become a fair and honest broker for the Mexican and American Indian peoples in their violent struggle to create a three-state solution satisfying their territorial claims on the U.S. Israel will provide fair and balanced media coverage, claiming moral equivalence whenever the Mexicans begin crossing the border with missile launches on American cities, suicide bomb attacks against American schools, and pizza parlors. Israeli press will make sure to give a full hearing to the legitimate grievances of the Mexicans, making America share equal blame for these attacks. Meanwhile, those of Native American ancestry will revisit the scalping of women and children, shown in the press to be their long-realized dream of right of return to their cultural heritage, you see. Israel will demand an immediate halt to any efforts by the United States at self-defense during this time, of course. Israel will then proceed further back in history, reenacting upon the Italians what the Romans did to them in 69 AD by murdering nearly every single one of them. And so on, and so on, and so on. All during the implementation of this new Israeli use of proportionate force Jews will encourage one another to heap upon their victims every vile form of degradation, including vicious insults, falsehoods, and calumnies. Fictional histories and heinous libels will be invented and applied to each of Israel's historic national enemies, which will be taught to new generations of children in their school textbooks. Israel will become the capital of the new great revisionist history, then to be foisted upon all humanity by insisting that none of these events, not one of them, ever actually took place. To start this campaign, Israel will cease entirely from sending her current exports of organic food, technological wonders, medicinal cures, and will instead export only one commodity: vitriolic, anti-Arab, and anti-gentile hatred. Henceforth, Israel's neighbors will be forced to live in constant terror of being killed by rockets and mortars fired haphazardly into their populated areas every single day, with continual bombings, stabbings, and kidnappings. Israeli television will offer cartoon shows featuring characters that teach kids how to murder Arabs and Gentiles. Israel will fill stadiums and reenact the murder of Arabs before thousands of cheering Jews. And after 3,000 years of all this, Israel will have finally conformed to the current UN mandates and their interpretation of international law, having finally stooped, having finally stooped to the level of all their enemies. No, having finally stopped their use of disproportionate force in favor of what Jewish law calls an eye for an eye. It's just an eye for an eye. This is fair is fair. Now imagine Israel go ahead and accede to the world's demands, behave more like the world does, quit acting like Israel and act like the rest of the world, the civilized world, and just be thankful that Israel never would. That's why my position is anti-Zionism, as they call it, really is anti-Semitism at its heart. Anti-Israel sentiments, the anti-state of Israel existing sentiments, that's anti-Jewish sentiment. That's just the same old anti-Semitism. Kill the Jews, the final solution. That's what you're all looking for. They all use the word. They won't stop using the word solution. It drives me crazy. Well, I think the solution is this. Well, the one-state solution, the two-state solution. Well, Hitler had the final solution, and he planned it with the Mufti, the Muslim Mufti, remember? Trying to explain that to people is a little bit difficult. See, they've got their preconceived notions, and I know the young host of Infowars Morning Show, Harrison, he's got his preconceived notions that the Christian church has replaced Israel, and that's just the way it is, okay? Okay. And young Nick Fuentes says, well, look, I understand they've got all these claims about the land and all of this, but all I know is that Paul Wolfowitz is a bad guy because I saw that from high school, so they're the Zionists, okay? And I'm like, no. It's such patently absurd, gross oversimplification that was the downside of the debate, for me, anyway.
According to Mark Twain, the land was virtually desolate without inhabitants until Jews began to reclaim the malarial swampland, and they only hired Palestinians to help them, and they lived copacetically.
No. Now you're spinning lies. No.
Twain was fed up with the primitiveness of the settlements and roads he encountered. The further we went, the hotter the sun got, and the more rocky and bare, repulsive, and dreary the landscape became. There was hardly a tree or shrub anywhere. Even the olive and the cactus, those fast friends of a worthless soil, had almost deserted the country. The statement reflects his general attitude to the ancient land throughout his journey. In one of the sharpest and most beautiful passages of the book, Twain states that, quote, Palestine is desolate and unlovely, and why should it be otherwise? Can the curse of the deity beautify a land? Palestine is no more of this workday world. So gosh, yeah, it's sad when someone like me makes up such terrible lies. Because his name's not even Mark Twain. That's what Harrison meant. Right.
I think so.
So, yeah. Harrison's fact checkers would say SID CANOE is fake news because his name's not really Mark Twain.
Please. Samuel Clemens, what difference does it make?
Thank you.
There's nothing holy about this. There's nothing in prophecy that says this is a good thing. Everything in prophecy said Jesus would come, and then Israel would go away, and Israel would become the body of the Christians. The Christians are now the people of God. We are now the chosen ones, okay?
It's not. It's not okay. It's not okay.
There's nothing in prophecy that says this is a good thing.
For lo, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah, saith the Lord, and I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. How could they possibly be the center of attention of the whole world constantly if God wasn't using them in some special, amazing prophetic way? And you can miss that. You've got to catch up sometime. The only way to do that is by listening to the true adventures of SID CANOE. Listen to this.
Everything in prophecy said Jesus would come, and then Israel would go away, and
Israel would just go away.
And Israel would become the body of the Christians. The Christians are now the people of God. We are now the chosen ones, okay?
Okay, well, you and me, pal. With the gloves on, in the octagon. Yep, that's fine. I like him still. And when he kept talking about other things, I was like, I still love you.
I will not be angry.
Good day, sir.
Anger, he smiles tyrantly, fighting metallic purple armor. Queen jealousy, envy waits behind him. A fiery green gown sneers at the grassy ground. Blue of the life-giving wars, take it for granted. Quietly understand. Once happy turquoise army stand opposite ready. Wonder why the fight is still on. Well, they're all bold as no fear. Yeah, they're all bold as no fear. Well, they're all bold as no fear. Just ask the axes. My red head is so confident it flashes portraits of war and ribbons.
So I could do the whole thing, but I do that on stage.
You know what you sound like? You sound kind of like Ted Nugent.
Well, they want us to keep fussing and fighting.
Well, SID CANOE, how do people find you? Because I want to get you on as a guest, man. You're amazing.
Call me back, or better yet, go on hold and grab Sid's details so I can reach out to him, his email or phone number or something. Okay, that'll work.